Hello and welcome to Talkin Bengals. This is episode 5. I'm Casey Sprague, joined as always by my faithful co-host Nick the Hooly Man Houlihan. And tonight, joining us again, the man, the myth, the legend, Ian the Hulk Johnson. So Ian, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, Case. Thanks for having me, man.
Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, feeling a little under the weather.
It's just getting to be that time of year, unfortunately. It seems like everybody's coming down with something. But we'll jump right into our first topic. This week, we got a lot of goodbyes to say to people. The first goodbye we'll touch into is a Bengal who was a long-time great player for the team, Shayne Graham. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of sad to see him leave. I was sad to see him leave the Bengals when he actually got traded. He had a great career with the Bengals. I don't really remember him ever missing a field goal. I mean, I know he missed a few, but never really missed a bad one. And something that was really needed, like what Nugent did to us. But I mean, Shayne Graham, he was pretty clutch for us. He allowed us to stay in games that we had really no business staying in, and he did a good job doing what he did. If we were able to find another kicker like him, we'd be doing all right. Ian, what do you think, man?
I was a big Shayne Graham fan myself when he was here. I think that it's probably a good idea for him to go ahead and retire, though. He did really, really well for the Bengals, but since he's left the Bengals, there really hasn't been a whole lot that he's done since. I mean, he's only played a handful of games. It looks like he's only played one full season since he left the Bengals. That was 2012. The rest he's been playing scattered games. 1, 2, maybe 8 games in a season he had in 2010. But I think it was a good decision for him to just get out of the league and retire without just being dragged through the mud. Case?
So if I remember right, Shayne Graham is still the Bengals' all-time leading scorer. He surpassed Jim Breach. I'll have to double-check my numbers on that. But I do know for a fact he's the only player in Bengals history to kick 7 field goals in one game, which tied an NFL record at the time. I'm not sure if it still stands or not. But that was a game against the Ravens where the Ravens scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal and lost to the Bengals off 7 field goals. I mean, it was just an unbelievable game. You're like, wow, we're going to lose this game because we can't get in the end zone. And Shayne Graham kept it to where we didn't need to get in the end zone. So absolutely outstanding career and a great guy all around. A little bit of a surprise and a topic that may have flown under the radar of most. Bengals linebacker Trevor Roach retires at the age of 25. Kind of unexpected. Ian, what do you think?
I was actually talking to you about this the other day, Casey. I thought Trevor Roach was going to be a promising guy. I mean, I know not a whole lot of Bengals fans know about him, but if you watched the preseason at all, in preseason game 3 and 4, he did fairly well. And in preseason game 3, it really stood out to me. I think the first 8 tackles of the game Trevor Roach had. So, I mean, he did fairly well. So he looked good. I noticed him get in on quite a few plays throughout the season. Obviously, he wasn't a starter at any point during the season, but he seems like he contributed a lot. And so I was really hoping that his sophomore season here, that he was going to do well and really break out as a guy that the Bengals could rely on, especially with such a weak linebacking core. So, Nick, what do you think?
I don't really have too much thought on it. Like Casey was saying, it kind of flew underneath a whole lot of people's radars. With everything going on last year around the start of the season, I didn't really get a chance to watch a whole lot of preseason. So I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, obviously, I kind of missed out on watching what sounds like a good player who works hard. But it may be a good decision on his part to retire early while he's still young. He may be able to find something else that he's good at. And I don't know. You fills in a little better than what I did.
So with Trevor Roach, it's just like I like what Ian said. You don't know. This could have been a breakout year for him. The linebacker core is nearly devastated. I mean, Burfict and Spencer Ray, the only guys you really have. Malaluga's a joke. Dansby won't be back, and there's really no one else that I thought stood out that great. It's pretty much an open market depending on who we draft. it's just surprising that, someone so young would just hang it up. And I mean, I know I read one thing about it saying he just didn't love the game the same way. But 25 years old, may want to stick it out just a little bit longer. I mean, I hate to say make that money, but at the same point, if you're not going to earn money doing or this kind of money doing any other job, so maybe stick it out a few more years, possibly, find another niche inside the game to fit in, maybe make the special teams, maybe do something. But definitely when you hang it up, it's over. You're not coming back from being a practice squad guy to getting picked up by any team. So it's done. Speaking of done, the Reds have frustrated everybody. I know we're talking Bengals, but the Reds have done a couple things this week or had a few bad issues that I feel like we need to bring up being Cincinnati sports fans in general. First off, Homer Bailey back on the DL. We didn't see that one coming. But the one we want to talk about is the unexpected trade of Brandon Phillips. Nick, I know you got some things to say about this one.
Brandon Phillips is not only a leader in the clubhouse, but he's a leader on the field. He may be, all spectacular and everything and look like he's, out there just trying to showboat. But, I mean, he really loves the game and he really works hard at it. From a lot of things that I hear about him off the field, I know that he really loves the game. And I think it shows when he's playing. He's always smiling. He's always having fun. In baseball, you have to have fun to play, especially when you're playing like 170 games a year. I mean, it's a lot of games, and to have fun for that long, I think it really shows something about his attitude towards the game. And you don't really hear anything bad about Brandon Phillips. I think that the Reds did a really terrible job right there without keeping him. I think he really wanted to stay here with the Reds, maybe do what Barry Larkin did and just retire with the team that he started with. I think it'd be a great thing. Ian, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think based on his contract in general, I think that he really wanted to stay here. He had originally a no trade clause in the contract where he could deny any trade that was proposed of him being traded. And I think the only reason that it was even considered for him to go to Atlanta is because he's from Atlanta. And I guess if they're really wanting to get rid of him, he's willing to go home. I do think it was a really stupid idea for them to get rid of him because who can you think in the locker room now in the clubhouse that's going to be a leader? I mean, Joey Votto doesn't really count right now. He's not a team player. He's not a guy that you're going to look to for guidance. He's kind of about Joey Votto right now. So I think Brandon Phillips was a voice for the team, and I think it was a dumb decision to let him go, especially for guys that really aren't going to do a whole lot for the team. So, Case?
Yeah, you get rid of Brandon Phillips, I mean, for absolutely nothing. You're actually going into the negative. You're paying the majority of his contract for the rest of this year, and you got a 27-year-old pitcher coming off Tommy John surgery who's bounced around to 3 or 4 different organizations, and you got this free agent from Cuba. The Braves signed the guy, a 29-year-old from Cuba last year. Neither one of them have seen significant major league time, if any. I couldn't really find if they had played any other than spring training. But, I mean, you have guys that are unproven for a 4-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, and a guy that's been your last person to do 30-30 for you, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. So what are you giving away? And all this goes to prove to me is that the Reds in general don't want to win. They keep saying we're building for the future. Well, that's not how you play. You got to put a competitive team on the field each and every day. And every year you got to be competing for a championship. And that's the perfect segue into our next topic we're going to go into. The Bengals need to start building for the future. And this week they maybe signed somebody that could help them out in wide receiver Chris Brown. So, Ian, what do you think about Chris Brown?
I think it's really early to talk about what Chris Brown's going to do right now for the team. I mean, we're talking a 90-man off-season roster right now. And the Bengals typically have 10 to 11 wide receivers at this time in the season. To beat out guys to make that preseason roster, he's talking about like Alonzo and a couple of those guys. To actually make it to the team, he's going to have to beat out guys like Cody Core. So to see, I mean, and then that's not too far past him. You know what I mean? I mean, he was rated to be a 7th round priority and a free agent priority coming out of the draft last year. And it wouldn't be unheard of for him to break out and do really well and show up some of those guys. But at this point in the season, I think he's just another option that we can pick up from the Cowboys to say, hey, is he going to be good, or is he just going to be another guy that we're going to end up releasing right before the preseason? Nick, how about you?
Right before we started, I was watching a highlight reel of him in college. And just from the few-minute highlight reel, obviously, it shows his best catches and all that. But what I was seeing was somebody who went for the ball and was focused on catching the ball. Not worried about what he's doing after he catches the ball, but actually focusing on just making the reception and not worried about what am I going to do after I catch the ball. Well, you got to catch the ball first before you can do anything afterwards. So he's worried on the first part, and he's worried about the biggest part is catching the ball, making sure he has possession. There was one where he goes over top one of the players and actually grabs the ball out of the defender's breadbasket, and he gets a touchdown in the corner of the end zone. It's also nice to have somebody who has presence of mind where his feet are, where the boundaries are and everything. So I think he has potential. I think as long as he wants to put in the work and he wants to prove himself, I think he may have a chance. I know he got injured last year. I know how Casey is about, you got injured one year and, it takes a while to get back. But I'm not too sure about what his injury was. Maybe Casey can elaborate a little more. But, I think he could be a good, 3 receiver. Possibly someone comes off the bench and relieves, gives AJ and or the receivers a little break. I think he could fill a spot. It's potential. But Casey, what you got?
All right, so the injury was a broken foot that sidelined him for the entire season there in Dallas. And it always just makes me nervous when it happens coming off of your rookie year. If you don't put up any NFL numbers, it's hard to gauge how well you can do in the NFL. Notre Dame, maybe some people will disagree with me. I know another sports person that used to write with me at Stripe Hype would disagree with me heavily, but Notre Dame is not a premier college program, in my personal opinion. So the numbers he puts up at Notre Dame, last I checked, Notre Dame still played Navy and a couple other schools I don't really consider to be that highly rated of competition. But he is 6'2", 194 pounds. He's a tall guy. His combine notes said, he could break it quickly up the middle, and he's good, consistent. He's good and consistent over the middle, can break it quick down the field. So possibly he could be a good option, but he was a number 2 receiver at Notre Dame. So it's yet to be seen, and he, like Ian said, he may just be one of those guys for depth. And maybe someone we're just looking at because we're not really sure who we're going to be able to get in the draft. We'll just have to wait and see. And the Bengals like to sign a whole bunch of no-names and, maybe find that diamond in the rough. I'm not sure if he's that guy. If he is, outstanding, that's great. I'd love for him to be a guy that's going to be a contributor and make great things happen. But if he doesn't, I bet they got him on a dime anyway. So it's not going to hurt us one way or the other. So other than the wide receiver position, which looks like the Bengals are still pursuing, Nick, what do you think the other big things we need to improve on to the 2017 are?
I think one of the big things is pass protection. To be quite honest with you, Dalton, a lot of the completions he made before the pass rusher could get to him. It wasn't necessarily that, the line was that good or the line was giving him time to throw the ball. He was just making throws. A lot of times forcing the ball. And, he got lucky. But, getting an offensive line that can give him time. Dalton's going to be absolutely phenomenal if he has an offensive line that gives him time. Just look at the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. Obviously the first half, you can throw that out, but the New England Patriots offensive line was giving Tom Brady all day long in the second half. And part of that was the pass rush, but at the same time, you still had the same down linemen as in the first half, and they just weren't getting the pressure they were. But to me, to have a good, solid quarterback like Andy Dalton, giving him time to throw the ball on passing downs, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and Then there's obviously the big one, making sure we have a field goal kicker who can make an extra point. Just plain and simple. Ian?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. We could talk for 2.5, 3 hours on what the Bengals need right now, because they need a lot. I think, in my opinion, what we need the most is on the defensive side of the ball. I think, like you were saying, Andy Dalton needs time to throw. And a lot of these needs are going to depend on what they do in this offseason here with free agencies and who they're going to sign. I think we have a couple scenarios here. I think if we, pony up and want to give Andrew Whitworth some money and want to give Kevin Zeitler some money to stay on the offensive line, and then we might be able to get, maybe a second or third round guard or center to pick up. I think our offensive line will do fairly well. They'll do okay. You can start rebuilding and developing some guys. But I think if they let those guys go, then I think priority number one has to be reinstating a good offensive line. But if they keep those guys, I think that they need to focus on defense. Our defensive line was atrocious last year. I know Pecco he's a great guy and I love him to death, but he's getting old and he's not as fast. And I know they played him a lot more than they really wanted to this past season. I know Andrew Billings was the guy who they thought was really going to come in and play most of the snaps at that position last year. And Pekka was really just going to be a guy who relieved him. So I think priority number one needs to be filling holes in that defense. Malaluga's not really doing very well. I've seen him kind of training in the offseason now. It looks like he's putting in work, but I don't know how much that's going to show on the field come fall. So I think right now, I think we're projected to go after Reuben Foster, which I like that pick. He's kind of an animal in the linebacking core. So I think if they really work to get those guys back and pay them some money, I think they can focus on what really is needed. So, Casey.
Well, I'm not going to harp too much on what you guys have mentioned. I think the offensive line is a big deal. Defensive line is a big deal. And the linebacking core definitely needs to be improved. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit and probably go to what's really probably a third-order priority. But let's talk about the running back core and the tight ends. The running backs, there wasn't much production last year. I mean, Jeremy Hill thinks he's an ideal professional and that he can do no wrong. And if he goes out there and gets 1.2 yards per carry for half the season, that's okay. And it's not. You need a running back that's going to be able to give Andy Dalton a little bit more time. And if you have an explosive running game, they can't they have to stack the box, which is going to leave receivers wide open. So if you don't, they got to get some kind of running back. And the other issue is there was no real other tight end that stepped up last season when Tyler Eifert went down. You didn't have Croft step up. You didn't have Uzama step up. They all just kind of blew their opportunity, I guess you'd say. I mean, they didn't just do anything that was uber impressive to make me think, wow, these guys can really be NFL tight ends other than, your regular backup. You got to be able to step up and be the star when you need to be the star. So I really think the Bengals need to look at some skill positions, get some more tight ends that are quality, and get a running back. It could be Rex Burkhead. I'm still just on my Rex Burkhead train. I'm not getting off of it. Bring back Rex. Make him our starter, premier guy. I think he can do a lot of great things that people don't think he's capable of. But you know what? Give him a chance. It can't be any worse than Jeremy Hill. It really can't get much worse than what we've seen the last couple of seasons. So moving into our favorite topic of the week, roasted or boasted, our favorite section of the show, I should say. We're going to do it a little bit different than normal. So this week with roasted or boasted, each of the three of us will pick a topic at random here and just present it to the group. And I'm going to put somebody on the spot first. That person is Nick.
Of course you put me on the spot, Casey. Can I pass? Am I allowed to pass, Casey?
There is no pass.
Darn. All right. Roasted or boasted? We'll go Second Amendment on this. NFL stadiums allowing should they not allow concealed carry firearms in the facility? And if so, why? And if not, why?
I guess I'll pick this one up first. And I'm a huge Second Amendment guy. I love concealed and carry. I carry most everywhere I go. but I'm definitely going to have to roast this. That is a horrible idea. All of the shenanigans that I've seen at football games and all the drunk idiocracy, for lack of any other term. I mean, you're getting beer dumped on you like you have many times, Nick, from the idiot behind us who worked for WEBN. Thank you, whoever you were. Those were great seasons. Getting beer just dumped down our backs by girls. But so yeah, I definitely have to roast that. The last thing we need is for the idiot bringing the drunk strippers to the games to be packing heat. I don't want to get shot after I get the beer spilled on me. So though I do support the Second Amendment, and I like being able to carry a firearm, having a firearm in a Bengals stadium or any other NFL facility or pro sports facility with a bunch of drunk morons is just a terrible idea. Ian?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. They're all the idiots that drunken, disorderly. Think about right now the text number when guys are being idiots next to you, and so if you throw firearms into the mix with the drunk and stupid decisions made at football games, not to mention all the hardcore fans that would take something too far at some point, just a bad idea. Not something that I want to be a part of at all.
I'm going to agree with you guys. I don't know. I just thought, with the overseas when there was the shooting at the stadium, you had the big argument. Well, if they allowed firearms in the stadium, I believe that was at a soccer arena. Correct me if I'm wrong, but soccer fans over in Europe they're pretty rowdy. I would have to agree with you guys on the roasted part. I think it's a terrible idea when you mix alcohol and guns. Just like Casey, I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. I think it's a great idea. I think it's great that people are able to arm themselves and protect themselves if need be. But yeah, I'm going to have to roast it. I'm going to put Casey on the spot. You come up with an idea.
So I already got an idea here, and I'm going to stick with your stadium theme and to kind of piggyback on what we said. Maybe Europeans aren't like us, but I have never seen more cops in one place except maybe a Dunkin' Donuts than at Bengal stadiums. There is cops everywhere. There is armed personnel as far as you can see. So I feel pretty safe and secure that if there was an active shooter situation at a Bengals game, it would be handled pretty rapidly and pretty quickly. I just hope the guy's not near me because I don't want to get shot. But moving into my topic, what would you rather have them serve at the stadium? Bourbon, Maker's Mark bourbon, or Jack Daniel's whiskey? Ian?
I'm going to have to go with Makers here. I don't really think that Jack holds a candle to Makers. Honestly, there's not a whole lot more I can say about that other than Makers are just great. So Makers is just great. So I'm going to boast that 100%. I have no other comments on that. Nick?
Well, I'm going to hop in there and say both. I would like to boast on both of them. But honestly, I don't know. If I had to pick one or the other, personal preference, I'd pick Jack. I like Makers, but I don't know. I'd rather have a Jack and Coke than any kind of Makers. There's so much better bourbon than Makers that I can come up with in like the next 5 seconds than Maker's Mark. But if I had to choose, I'd pick Jack. Casey, you knew that.
So Nick, being a typical turncoat on his own state, picks Tennessee whiskey over great Kentucky bourbon.
It's Court Nash. Get out of here.
I got to roast Jack Daniels all day long. Roast it. It's horrible. And boasting Maker's Mark, which is a fine, quality, wonderful bourbon. And if the Bengals start serving it, I may fly up there special just to watch a Bengals game and enjoy a Maker's Mark. So moving into hopefully something that's not random and off the wall. Ian, what's your topic?
All right, I'm gonna circle back to a more of a football topic here and something that's a little more at home for Bengals fans. And this is kind of a contingent topic here. Roast it or boast it. If the Bengals go sub 500 next year, does Marvin Lewis have the stones to ask for another extension on his contract? Casey, what do you think?
Oh, I think absolutely boasting he would try to ask for another extension. He's pretty certain that he's got this job until he's dead. I mean, we're going to see if it might really work out. Mike Brown and Marvin Lewis out there with their walkers, trying to look at the game through their giant spectacles and bifocals. And I could just see Marvin Lewis out there trying to, used to sprint down the sideline, kind of just dragging himself down the sideline, trying to move for a timeout, and he just can't do it. Marvin Lewis is never going to step down. You're going to have to fire him. He's kind of like, that ugly girlfriend you had in high school that you just tried to get rid of, and you had to, like, beat her away with a stick. He's not going to leave no matter how much you try to hint at him. He's just going to have the audacity to keep coming back and keep coming back. So I'm definitely going to boast that. We could go 1-15, and he's going to say, yeah, I think I deserve an extension. Give me one more shot. Nick, what do you think?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I agree with Casey. I'm going to boast that he could lose every last game in the entire season for 2 seasons in a row, and he'd still ask for an extension. I agree with Casey 100%.
I'm going to go the opposite direction here. I'm going to go with roasted, and I don't think this has anything to do with the Bengals front office at all. I think the Bengals front office right now is hiding behind the fact that he has 1 year left on his contract. So they're going to let him play out that contract just because that's how Mike Brown is. He doesn't want to lose any money. But I think if he goes, say 1-15 next year, I don't think that the Bengals fans would allow him to be in Cincinnati. I think the Bengals fans would run him out of Cincinnati rather than have him sign another contract. Like I said, Mike Brown can hide behind that 1 year left on the contract, but if he goes around and signs another contract to 2 subpar seasons in a row after not winning a playoff game all this time, that's Mike Brown signing himself up to lose money. So, and then that's not something Mike Brown will do. He, as much as he doesn't realize that if he wins Super Bowls, he's going to have more money, he's signing himself up to lose money by signing Marvin Lewis to extension after extension after extension. No new Bengals fans are going to arise. Nobody's going to continue to support a team that doesn't help itself. So
that's true. I've kind of focused our closing thoughts for tonight into what is each one of our favorite Bengals memory. It can be anything from what's something you've watched or something you witnessed live. Ian, what was your favorite Bengals memory?
I don't have a specific Bengals memory. I think that's a like one game that really stands out to me. My favorite Bengals memory, though, has to be just watching Chad Johnson play. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, and so watching him play is kind of when I started really getting into the game and really starting to enjoy the games and appreciate them for what they were. And so watching his antics and watching just how talented he was on the field, regardless of those antics, I mean, the plays that he would make were really something spectacular, and I just enjoyed watching him play. Nick, what about you?
Some of my favorite memories was as a kid, Casey, when we go up to Riverfront, wherever you want to call it, and we're sitting at the front row watching the pregame warm-ups. And specifically, I remember when the Packers were in town, and Reggie White and Brett Favre and Freeman were all playing. Yeah, I just remember watching the pregame. That was quite possibly one of my best memories of any type of NFL. That was watching a whole bunch of guys having fun, adults having fun playing a game, and it just made me love the sport even more. It kind of showed me what passion was all about for a game you love.
I'm going to stick with the nostalgia on this one. I mean, Ian's talking about, watching Chad growing up was a big thing. And Nick, those great games over there at Riverfront / Synergy Field, or the field formerly known as Riverfront, we should call it. But I'm going to stick with the season that's always near and dear to my heart and what cemented my status as a Bengals fan. 96. It was one of the last, I think it was the second or third last game of the season. The Bengals hosted the Baltimore Ravens, and they took a lead, and it all came down to 4 downs on the goal line. The Ravens were trying to score, and I remember watching the NFL Films video years later, and it said 4 times the Ravens came rapping at the door and, quote, the Bengals, nevermore. They stopped them on 3 straight running plays, and then a guy that I was a big fan of that probably no one else remembers, I don't think either one of you two would remember him, Sam Shade, was a safety for the Bengals. They did a fake up the middle, threw a little screen pass out there. Nobody thought they were going to get him, and Sam Shade tackled him at the goal line, just stopped him cold. 4 downs, Bengals win the game. stadium erupts. I mean, just absolutely pandemonium. I've seen it a few other times, but that was the first time I was like, wow, this is what it's all about. I mean, a sold-out stadium just going nuts. So that, for me, was one of my favorite Bengals memories that I've had. And this is a great show, but unfortunately we are out of time. So thank you all for listening. Have a great and wonderful week, and hoo-day.